down and listen to records. Smell the cover, read all the verses. Tell me about your favorites on Vinyl and Vision.
Hey folks, welcome to the latest episode of Vinyl and Vision. Episode 25 with my very special guest, Raskin. The latest project is Nova 1. This is the new record, Loveable, the full-length debut by Nova 1 on Community Records. So, Raz is a super talented musician in the state, and I was just thrilled to have Raz on the show about this record and also about the record that we're featuring tonight, Radiohead's In Rainbows. As Raz mentions in the interview, Radiohead being a kind of a controversial band because of their discography and kind of like the mutations that they have gone through. So I was really looking forward to this conversation. Now, in the age of quarantine, which we are in currently, we attempted to do this conversation remotely. So that proved to be a little difficult for me. Me being the bonehead that I am, I actually did not record the first half of our conversation, the first half hour about through my audio device. I just did the video. So you're going to hear a sound quality difference in the audio stream, okay? Basically, I pulled the audio off the video and spliced it into the audio. I am a little proud about that and give myself a little tap on the back because I overlap them where that video content comes into the better quality recording of my mobile device. And so like 25 minutes in about it sounds a little better. So I was just really nervous about doing this because the remote sense, and then my production assistant Corey was not coming with me to help me here, so it was kind of a one-man show all over again, and it's a little difficult. But I did my best to save it for you all, and I hope that you all enjoy it. Please, I got to mention some things quickly that I kind of took in my notes here. So for people watching the video, the audio quality is not that great. Kind of got to turn it up a little bit, and I'm sorry about that. But also, kind of off the cuff stuff, couldn't really help myself. It is what it is, and I did my best with it that I could. Cut out a lot of the music from the video because I can't use it anyway. So you might experience some kind of like jumping around. It might seem a little choppy to you, and I'm sorry about that too. But continuity's sake, didn't really want to keep any of this conversation that you couldn't really hear, and also I couldn't use the music, so kind of had to go. And then the audio near the end of our conversation, we just kind of touch on. I asked Raz if they were related to Joyce Raskin. Joyce is the bassist from the band Scarce. That's why I mentioned, and that's why I asked. I was just curious. So for those of you who don't know who Joyce Raskin is and what we were talking about, that's the band Scarce. Go look them up because they're great, and you should listen to them too. If you're watching the video, I've also included some live footage of Nova 1 performing at AS220 back in November of the previous year, playing some songs that were off of the new record. I hope you like those a little bit in the beginning, and then I'll also tag on a little bit at the end if you stay tuned. So thank you for watching. Please do all the things you do with the internet. Like, share, subscribe, tell friends, all that. Rate and review, please, because if you do that, then it helps the podcast get some more exposure, and that would be much appreciated. I thank you very much. Enjoy our show. So hi, it's nice to see you out there in the virtual world. Thanks for coming and doing this with me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so we were just talking about Radiohead, and so the album you chose tonight was Radiohead's In Rainbows. So why did you choose that record? Or what made you want to choose the record, I guess I should say.
Well, so your podcast is the prompt, I guess you would say, that you sent over was to speak to a specific record. And I chose this record because I feel like Radiohead is a band for me, like so many musicians, that was like a fundamental part of me understanding music in a new way
Yeah.
as a musician. So uh, it I would say in the past few years I haven't listened to their music as extensively as I used to. I used to be like a big Radiohead head. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know the term for people that are super into Radiohead.
Yeah, I don't know if they have a name. Like what do they call the Jimmy Buffett heads, or the
Parrot head?
Margaritaville, the
Parrot heads, right?
parrot heads. Yes, that's it.
Yes, so when your band name word has head in it,
Hmm.
Radiohead head?
Radiohead head. That sounds about right. Sure, we'll go with that.
Yeah, so I listened to them a lot in my teens and early 20s. And
Yeah.
so this record came out right when I was in my freshman year of college in '07,
Oh, okay.
when I just graduated from high school. So it was such a huge deal to me, and I think was such a large part of the way that I was thinking about composition
Mm-hmm.
and arrangements and sound in general.
Yeah.
So even though it hasn't been something, I mean, I would say I definitely listen to it, throughout the year, not nearly as much as I used to, but the the album just means a lot to me, and I think it is just banger after banger.
Yeah, I think that the critics would definitely agree. I was a little skeptical because I actually just had this conversation with my sister-in-law recently, where we were talking about Radiohead because I had a copy of OK Computer, and that was the one that kind of hit me because I'm a little older than you, so I think it was 95. OK Computer came out around then, and so I was like 15, and it was like the first thing of its kind, really. Like the first thing that I ever heard that I was just like, wow, this is like a game changer for the music scene, because then after that it was Kid A, right? Kid A came after that, and I loved that one too. So then like Amnesia came out, and I wasn't crazy about it. I kind of felt like it was the leftovers of Kid A. And then Hail to the Thief came out. I think that was 2003. I had actually moved to New Orleans when that came out, and I wasn't impressed at all. I think I listened to it once and was just like, okay, I'm done with this band. Like I wasn't liking the progression where they were moving to, like all of this like digital or like electronic sound. Um, so then when in Radiohead, in Rainbows came out, I was kind of looking forward to it, just trying to see like, okay, so where are they going to go? And I don't think I gave it a fair shot. You know, I mean, so did you start off with In Rainbows, or like where did you start in the catalog?
So I appreciate you giving that information about your Radiohead history, because I feel like they're such a controversial band within Radiohead fandom.
Yeah.
There's like certain albums that people get really pissed off by, or or they
Mm.
come back to later and are like, "Whoa, that was really great," or "Oh man, I hate that now," or and it's funny because also I feel like Tom York has been, obviously is one of the more well-known members of the band, who has also been very vocal about songs he like no longer likes or
Yeah.
like cringes to hear, which I feel like as a musician, just in general, I identify with that.
Mm. Yeah.
So I appreciate hearing him say that, But so I started off with OK Computer 2, but I started off with OK Computer, I guess almost 10 years after you did. So
Mm-hmm.
and after the release, so I heard Radiohead for the first time, like really heard Radiohead for the first time in '05, I
Mm-hmm.
think, or
Okay.
'06. Someone who I was playing in a band with was like, have you heard Radiohead? Do you know who this band is? And I said, they're a band that I'd heard of, but I hadn't really like dug in super hard. And so he said, you got to listen to this album, OK Computer. I think it's a really good starting place for like where they're moving towards now as a band.
Mm.
And I think that you'd really appreciate it. And so my mind was blown,
Yeah.
just completely shattered in the best way possible. And yeah, I had just never heard anything like it before, and I still think that music's in some ways catching up with some of the sounds that they were working with on
Mm.
that album. And then I, slowly moved out from there to other things. So yeah, Kid A I really love as well. Um, and then actually when In Rainbows came out, I was trying to think today about when the album came out and when I saw them. And for some reason, I thought it was the same period of time, but I
Mm.
saw them. The only time I've seen them was on the King of Limbs tour,
Okay.
which was in 2011. And but when In Rainbows came out, I I didn't really like it that much. I thought it was pretty good, but I didn't feel super engaged by it.
Mm.
And it wasn't really until like 3 or 4 years later that I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I think it takes a little while to kind of get into the record, which is why I said I didn't give In Rainbows a fair shot. I don't think, because I think I listened to it like maybe once. One of the interesting facts about that record was that I don't know if you realize this, but in 2007 when it came out, it was actually one of the very first major pay what you can releases digitally.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
remember that?
Oh yeah, it was huge because I've been playing out in bands since high school, and so the idea, like Napster had happened and all that sorts of stuff, but the idea of a release happening in that way was also really controversial,
Right.
at the time. And I was yeah, it was such a game changer for the music industry, I think, in good and bad ways at
Right.
that time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was kind of I realize I'm starting to do that every time I speak to somebody and say, okay, give me a record that that you love or that influenced you or something like that, and then I start to listen to both their music and that record, and I'm starting to see where the connection is, or like kind of see like, oh, okay, this makes a lot of sense now put into this context. I mean, like I may have mentioned Radiohead as an influence to you by listening to your music and what I know of your music, but I didn't hear it until I listened to the. I didn't hear it like clearly until I heard the Rice Cakes, because I went into your back catalog and it's just like, yeah, most of a good portion of those recordings are like a very kind of like proggy, almost psyched out rock music, and I think that Radiohead really speaks to that more so than what you're doing now as Nova One.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and me and Justin Foster, who was the bass player in Roz and the Rice Cakes, he was also a huge Radiohead fan. So he
Mm-hmm.
had seen them a few times, and that was something that he and I got down on sonically really hard. And Casey, our drummer, liked them a lot, but he wasn't like as much into the kind of like absurdity Radiohead fan zone
Yeah.
that I keep kind of touching on, like where you just listen to the records over and over and over and over again,
Mm.
trying to like grab at different things. Um, but yeah, so I appreciate you looking back into some of the older music. You can definitely hear more of that influence. Although I mean, I suppose that it exists in different ways in my music now.
Oh yeah,
Everything
I'd say.
manifests, but I would say that there's for sure like a more direct correlation.
Right. Is there something else that you think is uh, like informing Nova One's music more so right now than like what was happening with the Rice Cakes and Radiohead?
I think that Nova One, a lot of what came, I think, to me before Nova One started, in terms of just like where my headspace was at,
Mm-hmm.
is that I really wanted a place to put my pop songs. I really wanted a place to put that music, but also give it sort of this raw quality and have it be um, also a place for me to put the most honest, straightforward lyrics
Mm.
that I had,
Yeah.
that was true to who I was as a person, and that needed to be in a separate place than the way that Roz and the Rice Cakes existed. Because that definitely was, obviously still, I mean, it was my primary place to put my writing for many years.
Right.
And but then it felt like there were some like really heavy interpersonal things that were happening like towards the end of making the last Rice Cakes record, um, that needed to go to a different place. So that's how Nova One
Mm.
started, was during the making of that last Rice Cakes record, Devotion. uh, there was this other pocket of songs that was coming to life, and so I gave them a new name and a new place, and
Hmm.
they're all my arrangements, and my vision.
Oh yeah.
So I think that and it's. I mean, I think when I was listening back to In Rainbows the past few days, just to bring it back to Radiohead again,
Mm-hmm.
it really is incredible that these are to me they are pop records,
Yeah.
and they're just extremely experimental, but like there are so many beautiful hooks in
Mm-hmm.
these songs that get stuck in your head, and I think that they just took a lot of what was like pop structure
Yeah.
and messed it around,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so that to me it still feels like like a different version of pop music. So in that way, I feel like there are bits and pieces of that in Nova One.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, like I said, I didn't hear it as clearly, but I think that's you can definitely hear it. I mean, like even your guitar tone is pretty good. Like so, your first EP, Secret Princess, is got like a really heavily reverbed tone to it, which kind of reminds me of the Walkmen. Do you listen to them at all?
Yes. Oh, actually, you know what? Somebody, I just listened to one of their records with a buddy of mine.
Oh yeah. Do you know which one
It's
by a
like
chance?
early 2000s, right?
Yeah, some of it, like some of the earlier records of theirs, which are pretty good. Bows and Arrows was their second, I think.
Okay.
That was a pretty good one. But either way, the guitarist has just got this really kind of reverby tone to it. It's just got this huge sound to it, and so I kind of hear that a little bit with the first EP. The second one now, your newest release, the full length Loveable, the tone's a little different. I feel like it's a little more chorusy. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
There's some chorus in there. A lot of the gosh, now I'm gonna have a brain fart. There's there's uh there is sort of like a warble through a lot of it, like some extra
Mm-hmm.
sort of movement with the actual like frequency of the sound that I think makes a difference. So like a lot of the riffs
Yeah.
are put through um, pedals that bring about that effect.
Mm.
That feels like a little bit less. Um, I don't know, the sound to me feels less linear
Mm-hmm.
or something. But there's still a lot of reverb there. There's definitely some chorus, and I'm gonna remember the name of the other pedal at some point. But yeah, but the guitar tone definitely has changed, and actually a big reason why that changed is because of the production on the record. So
Mm-hmm.
I I co-produced it with Brad Krieger and James Parker from Big Night Studio. So
Mm-hmm.
they had a big hand in the tones
Yeah.
that were used.
Cool. So, do you have a vinyl copy of this record?
I actually don't. But my ex partner did. So I've listened to it. I've listened to it on vinyl before, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
What do you think? Do you like it better on vinyl? Are you a vinyl enthusiast for and you know?
Yeah, I would say that I am. I'm not like an avid vinyl collector, but I definitely appreciate the sound of a vinyl record, really compared to anything else. Although, I'm getting more and more into headphones, like really good headphones.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's nothing like that warmth, you know. Yeah, so I feel like the song. I mean, I feel like this record in general
Mm-hmm.
has a lot to do with analyzing the human experience. And there's like been some quotes from Tom York sort of about grappling with uh, the feeling of uh, understanding that there will be a point in time that you will die,
Mm.
and there's and like sort of intense emotions and themes like that
Right.
throughout the record. I also wanted to side note that this song is in 5/4, which is dope and is a wild way to start a record.
Okay, I did not know that. I am not
One, two,
a good
four,
technical
five,
musician.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's it's. But what's so cool about it is they make 5 feel as natural as 4,
Mm-hmm.
because 4 is you can clap 1, two, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
Right.
And they have that extra beat in there that, to anyone that's deep into theory and stuff like that in the way that I am,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, yeah, dude, cool.
Yeah.
What?
Did you pick up on that immediately, like when you heard it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because you are actually you are kind of like teaching as well. You're giving lessons as for music for piano and guitar.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't teach guitar anymore. I do teach piano and songwriting and like the practice of singing and playing. Um,
Hmm.
but I'm a classically trained pianist. So I grew up playing in jazz bands all through middle school and high school. So
Hmm.
I you know time sig weird time signatures and things like that are right up my alley, and I can pick up on them pretty quickly.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah.
So that in particular, as like a music theory centered person, um, yeah, hearing that initially was like, okay, even though I'm not like sure how I feel about this record, that is cool.
Cool. So you probably have a whole different respect for Radiohead than I do because like I like know like what they're doing is kind of like wild and kind of complicated and unique, but if you understand it, then yeah, that's another level from me. So
Yeah, well, I mean, it's yeah, I mean, I suppose that we all come at any given music with our own perspectives and like what we're getting out of it.
mm-hmm.
So at the same time as I come at it from this like theory based place to some extent, sometimes I sort of envy folks that don't necessarily have that type of view because there's something else that you're getting from it
Yeah.
potentially that maybe I don't get on a first
Oh
listen
yeah.
because sometimes I come at things where I'm like analyzing it just because so much of what I do is analyzing music. Like what I do for a living is I analyze songs in order to show people how to play them.
Yeah.
So sometimes I don't get that first, just like this is a song
Yeah.
and hearing all sorts of things maybe that I don't hear. So, anyways,
You're not necessarily going through the emotion first. You're kind of looking at it like mathematically first.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
somewhat.
Okay.
And then I mean, but then I'm so hook driven. I think like a lot of people are. So I'm wondering, what the melodies are and
Right.
the phrasing of the singing and things like that. So and Tom York, I feel like is just like such a wondrous vocalist in that way.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. Well, so we're gonna get into a little bit into the next song, "Body Snatchers."
Yep.
How do you feel about this one?
This song is a jammer.
Yeah.
A piece of this song that I really appreciate that I think sometimes I really just forget about for some reason. I'm going to say that a bunch of like those interviews. I forget about some of these things, and then
Mm-hmm.
you go back to it, and you're like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like
Right.
there's like pretty consistent acoustic guitar keeping percussion
Right.
the entire time. You hear it on that bridge, and
Oh,
I
that's
think
what it
that
is. Okay.
yeah, and I think that in this period of time for this band, sometimes I forget how much they use acoustic instruments because people think of them as sort of launching into this electronic period.
All right.
But I feel like this to me feels like a return to like some older sounds that they were using.
Yeah.
And that those things have sort of always been in there but have manifested in different ways. But I really appreciate the use of the acoustic guitar
Mm.
in a way that
Rhythmically.
I sometimes don't think about people using acoustic guitar, that it really can be used as a percussion
Right.
piece
Oh yeah.
instead of like plucking and kicking and like how we maybe think about folk music or something like that.
Yeah. So, do you think that you have ever had a moment where, or like had an environment that you were like writing and recording in that kind of influenced the way that a song that you wrote went?
Yeah, I mean, I think that every recording space I that I have recorded in, I mean that I have recorded in has influenced the tracking in every way you can really imagine. Like where you are and where you're making the thing, even if you written the music previously to being in that space,
Mm-hmm.
it influences everything that you do. And I've definitely recorded in spaces that were super uncomfortable, and so I feel like when I hear the recordings back, they sound uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then you can also hear the warmth, you know, the coziness of being in a comfortable place. And it's that there's one way of thinking about a song in that it's on purpose, it sounds uncomfortable, like you intentionally want it to sound uncomfortable, but the idea of something just being uncomfortable because the space sucked, like that's a whole other thing. And I think that has a lot to do with the people in the space and the way that the vibes exist in any given studio. But yeah, I would definitely say, like, for example, my experience making my most recent record, Secret Princess, and the last album I did with the Rice Cakes, all those were made at Big Nice Studio in Rhode Island.
Right.
And I think that when I hear back on all those recordings, I hear all of the love in the room.
Right.
And I think that absolutely affected the way that the music sounded.
Yeah.
And I don't cringe when I hear a lot of this music back, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're definitely a lot more experienced, too. I mean, you've had such a long career now, and you started fairly young. I mean, 2007 is when you said you started the Rice Cakes, and you've been playing well before then, too.
Yeah.
So, getting back to Big Nice Studios, and so you said that the newest album was produced by Bradford Krieger?
Yep, and James Parker.
And James Parker, and he's actually has been playing with you most recently on your duet tour, right?
Yep, yeah. So he's been playing with me on and off for the last, actually, really, I think since the band started playing more actively. So, I mean, it's really, the project has really only existed for like 2 years, a little over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so he started playing with me, I think, like right when the new record was announced. So like in the spring of 2018, I think.
Okay.
I'm sorry, like when that first record was announced, Secret Princess. But yeah, and so I feel like production is something that I hadn't really thought all that much about until maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, because I really felt like I was self-producing so many things, and that's all that really needed to be done. And I think that the more I've grown as a musician and as a person, and, you know, just experienced all sorts of different ways of making albums, I really have so much respect and a better understanding of what the production role is. So actually, when you think about an album like In Rainbows, you know, when they were trying their hand at using a different producer than what they were used to, I mean, Godrich was such an essential part of the Radiohead experience. So it is funny to think about them saying, you know what, screw it, like, we wanted to try something new.
And it wasn't working.
Let's bring him back in. He knows how to do it, you know, and he got their asses back in shape. And, you know, they had to tour in between those sessions because they almost broke up as a band. Because they were having such a hard time just, you know, coming up against a wall while they were trying to make the original In Rainbows in 2005.
Right.
So they, you know, went on the road, and they were like, you know, perhaps we can kind of reinvigorate the experience, which I think that they did. And then they were able to get back in the studio with a producer that they knew really well, that has seen the band grow. And I'm not surprised that the record ended up being as great as it was. But I also understand the interest in trying out a different person in that role.
Yeah. Just go with a whole different approach, really.
Yeah. But
so.
I'm trying to think of an idiom that's like, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Something like that.
Yeah, that'd probably be the most common, and it makes a lot of sense, though. I mean, and I think that's probably what they felt. I mean, yeah, I mean, it just seems that way because, you know, why else? Why else go back to the old producer unless you're like, he just knows how to work with us, you know? I mean, I think there are a bunch of artists that feel that way. So do you feel that way about, I just forgot the name now, Robert, was it?
Oh,
Bradford and James?
Yeah, I would say I definitely feel that way about them. I think that you know, I think to me, like the future of my music feels like super uncertain right
Hmm.
now, like where like my next direction is going to be, because I feel like I made something like this most recent album feels like a very specific thing to me, um, but I feel like they've done a really great job of making my writing the best that it could be,
Yeah.
and so I feel very excited about the work that we've done, and the idea of working together again would be something that I would be stoked on.
I want the fire, I want the sea, I wanna feel you digging me. A icy sun, a waterway, you swim around me, but am I lovable?
Yeah. Good. Well, you guys are out doing it right. I mean, the two recordings, the two most recent, are great. I mean, they sound great, and I mean, I think that your songwriting is beautiful. Like all the songs are really great, concise pop songs, you know. And so I'm just, you know, I don't know. I guess I should say that, like, you know, great job on making such good music. I mean, and like all the praise that you're getting currently. I mean, you're getting a lot of press for the new record being out now, and well deserved. You know.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that as much as the songs in so many ways fit into like a very basic pop structure,
Mm-hmm.
like most of the time, not all the time. I feel like there's a few songs that really fit into this funny structure for me, where it's sort of like a verse, a pre-chorus, a verse, a pre-chorus, and then a chorus.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't really know exactly where that came from. I'd have to like look back into more writing. Um, I'd like to think that the like the general emotion moving through the music, I don't know, does something to kind of set it apart in some way,
Mm-hmm.
um, from. I mean, because I mean, I suppose every pop song really at its core, you know, I'm I'm happy to think now that pop music is understood in maybe a different way than it was before. Like pop music has always been valued, but I feel like that there was a whole period of time when it was felt really off limits to refer to yourself as a pop artist. Like that felt
Mm-hmm.
really taboo or like lame or something.
Right. Yeah.
And you know, now I feel like people are finally giving Britney Spears her due. You know, it's like, god damn, like she is an incredible entertainer. She didn't write all of her music, but she absolutely influenced that music. You know, like a
Mm-hmm.
song like Lucky, the people that were writing that song were like, this is a song about Britney Spears and the way that she exists in the world.
Yeah.
And so I think that I'm happy to see pop music existing, at least today or like in like the last few years, in a different light, that there's like a newfound respect for it,
Mm.
at least in my view. I think that people are less scared to refer to themselves as having any kind of pop sensibility to them.
Mm. Yeah, I think you're right, especially like in the indie scene, because you're an independent artist, really, you know. And so I mean, if you were on a major label, it might be a little different, because then you could be legitimately like some kind of like pop star, or have the label push you towards that direction, because I mean the music warrants it. But yeah, as an independent, you know, you have that whole indie credibility thing that you have to fulfill, and therefore, pop music, you know, is just kind of, I don't know. It's a much harder sell in that environment, I think.
Right, and I think that it was.
Well, yeah,
And
it's moving in that direction where it's becoming a
yeah,
lot more accessible, for sure. Even
yeah,
in that genre, if you want to call it that, or that community.
yes, absolutely. It almost feels like, I think because, and this is, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this statement tomorrow, but I think I believe it to be true. I think I just sort of had an epiphany. I think that with the queerness that has erupted in the music community, with people being a lot more vocal about the way that they identify,
Hmm.
either gender wise or like sexuality wise, I think it's opened up conversations around things like guilty pleasures that maybe don't exist in the same way anymore. You know,
Yeah.
it's like seeing bands like openly cover bands like Blink 182, which maybe like 5 years ago would have been seen as like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And now people are like, no, we grew up with that music. That's foundational music. That's music that, you know, was on TRL when I was in what, 6th grade or
Right.
whatever, you know, like that absolutely influenced the way that I think about the music industry and the way that I think about, you know, pop punk or whatever,
Yeah.
you know? And so I think that to me, it's really exciting to hear people talk about those artists in a way that's just as valid as, you know, thinking about bands like Led Zeppelin or the Beatles that for whatever reason were like also pop bands, but were maybe like a lot more masculine or something, or I don't know, like just got a lot more credit.
Right.
And like obviously those artists came before the artists that I'm talking about now, and so like
Right.
that's cool. But at the same time, like those artists were also, you know, piggybacking on Black artists that were making that music way before they were making that music, you know?
Right. Absolutely.
So I feel like just following the way that pop music has developed over time is so fascinating.
Yeah.
And there's like obviously a lot of problematic, you know, things that happened along the way. But anyways, long story short, I just feel like maybe there's something in particular about this moment in time that has allowed people to feel less guilty about liking things that maybe in the past had felt cringeworthy.
All right. Yeah. Well, speaking of pop music and Radiohead, what song do you like next on this? Because I don't want to play the whole thing.
I would say that my favorite song on the record is All I Need, number 5.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Let's try it. Yes, this one. This one reminds me of like Kid A.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what I love so much about this song is, so the bass has already come in, that it starts off bassless, and then the bass line is a lot of what leads the song in general. Like there's a period of time, I think it's the second verse, where like a glockenspiel comes in.
Yeah.
That is hitting those same bass hits. And the phrasing of the bass is just so unique and really pushes the song along.
Right. And do you think that's bass, or do you think that's like some kind of like keys, like some kind of like synthesizer or something?
It might be a synth bass.
Something like that. I'm not sure exactly what kind of instrument, but yeah. Like I don't think it's a stringed bass.
You know, we'd have to look at the In the Basement footage.
Oh yeah. All right.
Because it could be a string bass that's just put through a bunch of pedals that make it sound more like a synth.
Mm-hmm. You could be right. I'm gonna stick with the keys. I'll look it up.
Well, and you also have to think too that that the way that it was played live might not be exact to what they did in the studio too. So
Right.
Sometimes they'll reimagine something. But yeah, so what I really love about this is that verse 2.
I'm gonna kill it before verse 2, but let me know. Tell me.
Sure, yeah. So something that I really dig about verse 2 is that's the period of the song where it first has its sonic zenith, where there's all this noise that's sort of coming in from the background, and then it comes to a head at the very end of that verse, and then it all cuts to pretty much vocals and drums, and then like a little bit of bass. But all I need, you know, and then it has that outro where the piano comes in, stronger than it has before with the chords. But I forget when the piano comes in originally, but the piano, the bass, and the glockenspiel are kind of all playing this like a similar rhythm throughout that entire second verse.
We were talking about, I asked you if you had a copy of this on vinyl, which you said no, but have heard it. So what is your relationship with vinyl now? Because it seems that you have actually made efforts with the Rice Cakes and now currently with Nova One to kind of make sure you put vinyl out.
Yeah, I mean, I've been putting out vinyl since I think the Rice Cakes put out a 10-inch in 2010. That was the first vinyl I ever put out, and then I believe it was like a few years later we put out a 7-inch. And
Yeah.
actually, the funny story about the 10-inch is that we were super new to vinyl, but vinyl was coming back in pretty hard then. It wasn't as big as it is now, though now it's all over the place with the pandemic happening and record sales are, who knows what's going to happen.
Right.
But so at the time, we thought that a 10-inch was we thought that the length of a 10-inch, which I believe is like 9 minutes on each side, a little bit longer than that. We thought that that's how long a 7-inch was.
Oh, okay.
We were wrong. And so when we were getting the records made, we realized that we couldn't do a 7-inch, which was going to be way cheaper. Because of the songs that we had recorded and the way that we wanted to put it out, it was like 2 songs on one side and then a long song, like an 8-minute song on the second side.
Okay. That
we were going to have to do a 10-inch. So, which actually ended up being a pretty dope first release to put out a 10-inch. In retrospect. So I've been putting out vinyl records for about 10 years. And I mean, I think that there really just is. I mean, I grew up listening to vinyl. My dad has a big vinyl collection. So I definitely, there's something super nostalgic about it. For me, just the act of putting a record, on the record player and putting down the needle and hearing that little crispy, dusty sound. Yeah. So I think that in general just really warms my soul. So I love vinyl because of that. I actually right now I have a record player that was my grandfather's, then it was my dad's, and now it's mine.
Oh wow!
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. How did a record player last that many generations? What kind of record player is it?
It's actually.
You'd have to look at it.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it to know the brand, but it actually took a little while to get it working again. My dad brought it over for me, and he had to put at first put a bunch of coins on top of the needle to make sure that it was actually going down with the weight enough, so something got a little bit messed up with the weight of how it was being putting down any kind of pressure on the record. But we finally got it going.
Cool.
So I have this old awesome player going, and then I also have some speakers that I just sort of found in the basement of my old apartment that I wasn't sure if they were going to work, and they work. So I have this kind of funny system going on in my living room that sounds great.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to listen to more of my records out there now that I'm sort of more in my zone in my house. And
right, you got some time to kill, right? Yeah. Might as well.
Yeah, I got time on my hands. Days are kind of feeling pretty flexy, depending.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then in terms of from what you said before about me being a teacher, I do now teach remote piano lessons. That's my primary job at the moment.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I mean, I'm glad to know that you have something to fall back on in this time where you can't do any gigging, and especially now with your album coming out in a few days from now. I would imagine that you were supposed to be on tour right now.
Yeah, so our tour was supposed to start April 30th and was going to go through most of May. But I've been working as a part-time touring musician, part-time piano teacher for the last 11 years.
Right.
So I never had been in a place where I was just a touring musician. It never was going to be that for me for a few different reasons. I mean, one, I really do like teaching. Yeah. I like being home, and I like being in Providence, and I like putting on shows here, and I like being in the community. But yeah, so I've always had a second job to help sustain the touring life, and I'm really thankful to have a population of students that's very supportive of my touring life.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, now you know that you can at least you could even give the lessons on the road.
Yes,
at this
I know,
point.
right?
So that's not bad. So it's kind of working out in your favor in that way, at least. We're trying to find the positives in this pandemic era that we live in now. So that's one of them.
Absolutely, yeah, and I feel like teaching is such a cool way to be able to connect with people musically. And so I really appreciate. I've got some awesome students. I feel really grateful for that. Cool people, cool kids. I've got some like just such cute, sweet kids right
That's
now.
great.
So, yeah.
That sounds great. So you only teach in piano too? I mean, like, so because you're predominantly now a guitar player. I remember the first time I saw you, actually you were playing solo. You have like a Nord Electro or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where did you see me play that? Do you remember?
It was at Machines with Magnets. It was John White put on a show there. Like he was doing an art installation, like an art gallery, like for. I don't want to say it was an autism benefit of some sort.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you just were playing alone that day, and you were just on the piano, and so I was there with my oldest son, and we actually sat and watched you for a little bit.
Oh, that's right. I played a few of those. Oh, John White. John White. Yeah, I feel like I'm trying to remember what year that was, but yeah, I did a few gigs where I was playing just keyboard.
Yeah.
And yeah, Machines and Magnets. Oh my gosh, wow. Yeah, I'm just trying to put the timeline together.
Yeah, you can't remember it. That's all right. I mean, it was a while ago.
Well, I was thinking that I played a John White benefit that was actually at the old gosh, I forget if it was the Black Rep then, but like where Aurora was. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
This is many years ago, because that was one of those benefits that I played with the band. And you're not talking about that one, right?
No, okay. It was specifically just you by yourself.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but so now you moved over to guitar. I mean, now Nova One is like you're only playing guitar for your performances, and you imagine you did piano for the recording, but it's like guitar predominant, right?
Yeah, so I would say that's predominantly what I'm playing for sure. Although on this album I played piano and electric piano a few times, or like Rhodes, so I'm dabbling back with keys, and actually, in general, there is a Privia sound that is pretty prevalent on most of the tracks that you can hear as sort of like a backing effect on things like Violet Dreams, and I'm trying to think of where else that sound is pretty prevalent. But yeah, so I'm dabbling more in keys on this release. There's more keys on this than there was on Secret Princess, which only had a little bit of Rhodes.
Yeah. It
was very much used as a background sound. So yeah, I mean, I think it's because, so I started playing guitar when I was like in 5th or 6th grade. So I was learning guitar right along piano for a long time, but I was using it in a different way than I had originally been using piano, because piano I learned from a very theoretical perspective. And then whereas guitar, I think about more as shapes. And so, yeah, I'm trying to dabble a little bit more in both. I think for a long time I played so much keyboard that I really needed to take a break from it. And then now I feel like I play a lot of guitar, and I need to find some kind of medium.
Yeah.
And then I also started learning drums a few years ago, so that's been fun. And I learned how to play some bass in like my early 20s, so bass is fun. So on the new album I play a lot of different things, and also Brad and James, the producers, they also played a lot of things. And actually Casey from the Rice Cakes, he played drums on a few songs too.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. So there's no hardship between the band. I mean, like let me just say this about the Rice Cakes, was that I don't know why did the name change so frequently, and like it seemed like it was changing like intermittently between years. Like if you look up your discography on iTunes, it's just like you have like 4 different band profiles, and like all the records are scattered throughout all of those profiles. It's like you can't just like listen to top to bottom, and they're all different years. Like
right, James.
No, it's not a criticism. I was just like,
No. I'm just joking. It's just I'm so painfully aware of all.
Yeah.
Of it. No, it's absurd. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's a band. It's a band growing and changing, and we literally signified that in every time we've changed the name of the band. It was Roz Raskin and the Rice Cakes. Well, it was Roz Raskin, then Roz Raskin and the Rice Cakes, then the Rice Cakes, then Roz and the Rice Cakes.
Right. Oh, okay. That was the order?
Yes. Yeah, so the original name, because I was performing as just Roz Raskin, then we added the Rice Cakes on, and then we took off the Roz Raskin, and then we added the Roz back in. And so, but in terms of the relationship between the people in the band, I love those guys. Yeah, me, Kate, and Justin are still very much on good terms. And Casey has been actively playing with Nova One, for the last year and a half or something like that.
Yeah.
And then Justin is a dear friend, and he was, now it's on hiatus, but he was doing a lot of the booking at the News Cafe in Pawtucket.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Cool.
and he's worked there for a long time. Those guys are awesome. It was really, for me, it felt like creatively I was starting to feel stuck, and I wasn't really sure where to bring the project next, and I feel like I needed to give it a rest in terms of wanting to make sure that I was able to save the friendships that we had.
Right.
So we didn't find ourselves in territory that was not honoring where everybody was at creatively.
Yeah. Well, that's nice. I'm glad to hear that you could, that everyone's still getting along, and it's not like any kind of animosity, because it always sucks when, those bridges get burned when you're in a band, because it's like, those are like family members, like the time that you're in a band, So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've been in a bad band breakup before.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to do everything I could to make sure that that didn't happen. So I think that just being a more mature human, I was already feeling like things needed to change before things got to a place where they were feeling super tough.
Yeah.
So it just felt like it made the most sense to put a break on the project. And who knows, maybe once we can all get back to band practices again, perhaps we'll play together again. We've talked about it a few times in the past couple of years, so it's possible.
That's cool.
You never say never. So, and they're two of the best musicians I've ever played with in my life.
Yeah. That's great.
And Justin has a new solo project that you can actually hear online, and Casey's played with all sorts of folks, but he's actively playing with a band called Burr right now.
I haven't heard of it. Burr?
Burr, yeah, Burr, and they're great.
Cool.
So so everyone's still out there doing their thing, and and I feel very lucky that Casey and I can still share space musically, and he really honors the songs.
Yeah.
And plays to them very well.
Yeah, sounds great. So I'd like to start another song. We're going to go ahead and jump up to House of Cards. Why not?
Hey, sure.
Because I don't know if this was one of their singles or not, but it definitely is one of their most popular songs off this record.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like, to me, I was actually just saying that this song to me is beautiful, and there's something that I really love about it, but it's not a standout for me.
Yeah.
I would say my top, it's, it's one of those things, the album, I feel like every song is pretty dope.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the top tunes for me feel like All I Need, Videotape, Body Snatchers, Jigsaw Falling Into Place.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that those are my top tunes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's maybe because 15 Step got so overplayed in my world.
Oh, did it? Okay.
So that song's great,
Yeah.
But I feel like the songs that really just hit really hard for me were Videotape and All I Need, those songs in particular.
Yeah, they are definitely motherfuckers when it comes to the ballad. You know, like I know that I follow you on Instagram, and yeah, I love a sad song. I mean, that's my happy place. I actually have a book from Charles Schultz with the Peanuts characters on it, and it's actually called "Happiness is a Sad Song," and that's my book. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never let my children touch it. I was just like, no, this is my book. This is for me.
Yeah. I recently started reading The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath.
Oh yeah.
And I was talking to a friend of mine about it, and she was like, "Oh, that makes sense." She's like, "I feel like that must be similar to, I mean, because it's a book about a person who is slowly losing their mind, you know." And so, like, of course, I'm reading that in this period of time. So it's sort of like, ooh, is that a good call or bad call? I don't know.
A little too on the nose.
Right, but she, I'm going to misquote her, but she said something along the lines of, it's sort of similar to the effect of being sad and listening to a sad song, in like the comfort that you get in like a similar feeling experience.
Yeah.
So I actually feel a lot of comfort in reading The Bell Jar, in the same way that I feel a lot of comfort in listening to songs that make me feel really deep.
Right. I agree with you. I mean, like, seriously, every sad song on every like landmark album, like, that's my favorite song. You know, it's just like, and it can be cheesy to a degree. Like, if I were to say, like, to name all of them, I'd be like, okay, well, you got, Imagine by John Lennon, killer every time. Then off the Zombies, Odyssey and Oracle, it's shit, what's the name of that song? It's just like that. Fuck, I can't remember the name of it now. But it's the sad one. It's always the ballady song that touches me the most, And like, yeah, I think I kind of awkwardly like enjoy like a good cry every now and then, as long as it's like on my terms, as long as like the kids aren't around. Like, if it's just like, oh, I'm gonna have alone time and I'm gonna listen to a song that's gonna make me weep, and that's good, and then I'll feel better afterwards.
Yeah. Have you cried in front of your kids?
Yes. Yeah, I have.
Yeah, because value to that too, right?
I would hope so. I mean, like, because I don't know. I mean, I never remember my parents crying, so, I know, like, I don't really play into the whole masculinity thing. Like, I don't feel like I have to be this masculine man for my children to mirror. I tell them all the time, it's just like, it's okay to like cry, because I know that like the youngest in particular has a kind of a chip on his shoulder, so he doesn't want to show feeling. So if he's going to be upset and like get teary, he's going to want to hide, and I'm just like, it's okay, man. Like just it's okay to cry. Like, it feels good, and it's like you need to get it out, and that's fine. So
yeah.
He did confess to me once though, but it was really cheesy, because we were actually watching Avengers: Infinity War, or the newest one, the latest one, not Infinity War. I forget what it's called now, but yeah, the big one. So, because it gets really sad, because, spoiler alert, Iron Man dies in it, for anyone who hasn't seen it. You didn't watch it?
I haven't caught up with those movies, but don't worry about it. I love a good spoiler. So
well, you're an adult. You know that Robert Downey has walked away from the company. Therefore, it's got to end poorly, right? So yeah, like in the movie, I went into it knowing that both Chris Evans, Captain America, and Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, were leaving the franchise. So it's just like, okay, well, one or both of them are dying. Like, it has to happen, So I kind of went into it knowing, I was just like, this is going to be a motherfucker for us. And like, it was just me and my youngest. And by the end of the movie, he was just like, Dad, I cried at the end of the movie. I was just like, yeah, I know, me too.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, it's a little cheesy because it's, Marvel movies, but it's they're very emotional. Yeah, and that's, I don't know. These things always hit nerves.
Absolutely. Well, and I would venture to say that blockbuster movies are sometimes the best at making you cry, because they literally know how to do that in such a formulaic way. They know the right chords to play. So much of it has to do with music. Right.
Oh yeah.
Right.
It's true.
That they know exactly the chord progression that's gonna get you crying with your kid. And,
Yeah, I'm kind of watch less movies with them now. Because everything does it. That's the thing. That's the thing they don't tell you when you become a parent. Is just like, yeah, you're just going to become a weepy mess all the time. It's like, oh,
yeah,
okay, well, that's cool.
yeah, there's something special about that. That's cool.
So, oh yeah, and that reminded me. I wanted to ask you actually about your family because you had mentioned your dad earlier. So your parents are from Rhode Island.
So my parents are actually from the Maryland, D.C. area.
Mm-hmm.
And then my parents moved to Rhode Island. Gosh, I guess it must have been like the early 80s, like late 70s, early 80s, because my dad went to a residency program at Brown. He's an ER doctor.
Oh, cool.
And so then they stayed here. And then my mom is a therapist. And so they were both very encouraging of me musically growing up. I think it was a little bit of a tough pill to swallow that I was gonna like stay in Providence and pursue music here at first. But then, I feel like now my dad lives vicariously through me.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of ways. He's super psyched on all the music stuff, and he's in a few bands now too. He's in a Motown band and another cover band, and he also voluntarily directs the classical high school jazz band. I went to classical high school. So
cool.
He's been voluntarily directing that band for like over 15 years or something like that.
Nice. That's great.
So,
And your grandmother has become a big influence on you too now because you've incorporated her into your album artwork. And you didn't know her.
Right.
So what was that like for you, like finding those photos and deciding to use them for the artwork?
I think that I suppose anybody that has access to older photos, if that's like a possibility for you,
Mm-hmm.
there's something so fascinating about these worlds that are sort of have affected your life in some way.
Yeah.
And so I think there's certain photos that have struck me for any particular reason over the years, and the photo that was used for Secret Princess, I found that photo maybe 7 years ago or something like that, and knew that I wanted to use it for something at some point, that it was speaking to something. And then when I finally figured out that I was going to be putting out those Nova One songs, which I originally, Nova One didn't really exist as like a real idea of a band. It was just like, oh, I have this chunk of songs, and then I ended up sending it to Community Records. Greg, who is one of the co-owners of the label, he and I were talking about me starting a label, because I was very interested in starting a label like 3 years ago, something small, putting out like little tape releases here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And so he and I got on the phone, and he was like, hey, I'd love to talk to you about running a label. I think you'd be good at it. And then in that conversation, I was like, hey, I have this side project. Here are these songs. Would you be interested in checking it out? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so then the next day he was like, yo, can we put this out? Let's put this out. And I was like, what? That would be cool. Yeah, sure. That would be awesome. I would love that. And then so around that time I was thinking about what the album artwork would be and what it would look like, and that was the image that I kept coming back to.
Yeah. Oh,
so
that's great.
Yeah, there's something so mysterious about that photo. Yeah?
How so to you? I mean, from an outsider's perspective, it's mysterious because it's like you can kind of tell it's a vintage photo, but who knows? It's just like, oh, like who is this model you found to like take this photo of you that like have this like vintage looking vibe, like. But it turns out it's actually an old photo, and it's an old family photo. It's your grandmother.
Yeah, and it's probably it looks like it's probably her in her 20s, so it must have been taken at some point in the 40s.
Yeah.
I just think it's really interesting because she's wearing this outfit where like she has this sort of like brooch vibe that's matching her skirt, and it looks like she's high or something.
You think?
That she's on some sort of psychedelics or something like that, or she's really acting like she's, I don't know, really feeling something, or that she's taken by the day. And I actually, somebody bought my record in Galveston, Texas, and said to me, "Oh yeah, there it is."
There it is.
And she said to me, she said, "This really feels like a very feminist cover to me. This looks like somebody who is just so exhausted with the norm. Somebody who is just wanting so badly to break out of what is considered to be like woman, you know?"
Yeah.
At that period of time, and I really vibed on that sentiment.
Wow, that makes that really puts a good perspective on that now, because even the subtitle on that EP, would you consider that a subtitle? What you have on the spine of that record?
Oh,
Your dedication.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I suppose you could think of it that way. Sure.
Because it's on the spine. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think from an outsider's perspective, just looking at it, being like, oh, okay, what does this mean? And I mean, it seems like it's definitely something that you want to say, and it kind of feels almost title-esque. I'm sorry, hold on a second.
No worries.
I just...
Yeah, could you read it out? I'm almost forgetting what it says.
Oh yeah, dedicated to those who seek warmth and acceptance.
Yeah.
Right, so that kind of fits in with just what you were explaining and describing, so...
Yep.
So, that signal means that we are just about out of time.
Okay, yeah,
So we'll just wrap this up a little bit. I'll just ask you maybe a couple more questions. The one quick one that I was actually been thinking about for months now is just like, do you have any relation to Joyce Raskin?
You know, I actually don't. But
okay.
We've met.
You've met?
We've met. We met at the Parlor probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago or something, and we talked about how there's probably a good chance that we could be related.
But you haven't found any connection yet?
No, but I mean, there's not that many Raskins that I know of. I mean, there might be more in other states, but then, you know, it's not like a super common name in my world.
It's not in anyone's world, I don't think. I mean,
yeah,
I find it pretty unique.
Totally, and we're both, you know, of, you know, Jewish backgrounds, and but yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the connection is, but we have met, and Joyce is awesome.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So I want to go ahead and play a little bit of videotape now, just to close this out. When we were talking earlier, which I don't know if I'll be able to save or not, but we mentioned how this record first came out as a pay what you can, and it was like the first of its kind. You were mentioning how you feel like they kind of ended up putting the music industry in kind of like this whirlwind, like this kind of like it kind of really set them apart into a different category, right? Of you know, like what they were the biggest band in the world at the time, but like they changed the music because Napster was still a thing, or was like very prevalent at that time, and people were just like stealing music like rampantly, which I guess people are still doing. But how do you feel about music streaming in general at this point?
You know, I feel like music, I mean, I heard a few questions in that question.
I'm sorry, I rambled.
No. Oh my gosh, no, it's okay. I just wanted to, because I think it's a great question with like a lot of layers.
Right.
I think that, you know, so I was taking a look at some quotes around this release earlier tonight. I was taking a look at like what some other musicians had to say at the time when it was happening.
Right.
Because I feel like to one extent it's cool to be offering music in a way that it feels very accessible to a lot of different people. Like, for example, folks that, you know, can't typically afford a record could just download this record for free if they wanted to, and then people that have the means can pay full price or even more if they want to, right? They could pay $1,000 for the record if they want to.
Right.
And so I feel like that kind of sliding scale sort of sentiment is something that I really love. Like, for example, with some of the shows that I put on, I do sliding scale because I want for folks that have the means to be able to pay or pay more, and then folks that don't have the means to be able to come to be able to have access. But I feel like it's also it's also more complicated than that, because like a band like Radiohead, like, yes, they didn't have to have a label to put out this record, and they had been with EMI and they broke that contract, and they had a huge dispute with their label around this whole period of time that they were putting out music in this way.
Right.
But they had the privilege in the years and years of like a really massive career that they could put out a record and still sustain themselves.
Right.
So there's a lot of privilege that goes along with something like that. And then I think there's a lot of backlash from other artists saying like, yes, in some ways this is a really cool move, because like the music industry is so fucked in so many ways.
Right.
But at the same time, what you're saying is like, are you somehow coming across as more generous or something?
Right.
And then at the same time, like devaluing me putting out a record for $18?
Right. Because it's like not every band was the biggest band in the world. Not everyone had the privilege of like just giving away their music and hoping that everyone was going to do the right thing and give them some money for it, you know.
Right.
And plus, they owned all the rights too. So when this record came out as Pay What You Can, they weren't on a label technically. So it was completely self-released. So they kept all the money, I would assume, and didn't have to worry about paying anything back to the label.
Right, exactly. So. They were sort of like, like screw the model of label, and it's like, well, yeah, but you also build your career off of being on labels, right? Like you also, you gained recognition through press and through publicists and through booking agents and all these people that are like a massive distribution. Sure, yeah, massive distribution, right? So like, I guess what I'm saying is, I think it was a really incredible move, but I feel like there's also like layers to understanding why that move is not accessible for the majority of bands.
Right.
And so, that, to allow music to be seen as, I don't know, the value of music. God, what a complicated question, and like what is value, and what do people consider, like, for example, I've been doing these streaming shows, and I've been saying to people, like, suggested donation of $5 to $20, and we've been giving away half of the funds that we make from any given show to, like, a nonprofit, and then half of the funds sustain the band itself.
Mm-hmm.
And, some people pay $5, and I had somebody pay $80 the other day. Yeah. Because they can, and so I think... it's a really complicated question that I don't really have an answer for, and I think it's I'm forgetting what your original question.
Well, I was just I wanted to get your feel on streaming music in general, because with that being said, coming to today, moving forward 13 years from the release of this, and the first time that was happening on a large scale, now with something like Bandcamp, and you have all of these bands, all indie bands, bands that are signed, bands that have labels or not, whatever, anything they want to put out, they put it on Bandcamp, and a lot of there's a good portion of like free music available now through that to download, and then also the whole streaming platforms thing where, you have Spotify and, Apple Music and stuff like that, where you can listen to full-length records, but you don't necessarily have to purchase it. You know? So there's, again, another kind of twofer question here, was like how you feel about it in general, because as an artist, how does that affect your income? Like the whole streaming thing, I know, is like people say, like, you get fractions of cents per listen, and then the accessibility of like actually paying for a record, downloading it, and having instant access to it.
Right. I mean, I think that that streaming, it feeds right exactly into everything that we're saying about how controversial music consumption is right now, because there's something really incredible about the accessibility that people have towards, getting, you can have Spotify for free, right? You can like have it with ads or whatever, or Pandora or whatever you're listening to, or Apple Music, and then you can pay for this, like more advanced ad-less version of that thing. And artists really are getting so little of those sales. Like, that is absolutely a real thing. And Bandcamp is a better way to actually get money to musicians. I mean, and the best way is to buy the merch directly from them from the road. And I think that's the most challenging thing right now, right? That we can't tour. So we don't have access to that. I mean, I think that the whole system, in the same way that I mean, the whole system has failed and has been a failure for a long time. I think it's always been set up to really benefit people that already had benefits, you
Mm.
know?
Right.
And so I think that in the same way that like our government has failed, there's so many other systems built around a similar idea. Like you think about, for example, like any period of time where there have been pop musicians before the internet or rock bands before the internet, like the amount of bands that actually existed
Mm-hmm.
at any given time, there were tons of them, but a lot of them didn't have access to a label or getting heard by the right people, and so much of it is um, who you know and connections and being in the right place at the right time. And um, so I think that, uh, yeah, I think it's some wild stuff, James.
It's
There's
the
like
Wild
no.
West out there making music.
It really is. I mean, like you think about, I already talked about Britney Spears, but like the amount of other pop stars that existed at that time. You can think about like other pop stars that existed in that period, but then also the amount of people that didn't have access to like putting up their single on Bandcamp or on Spotify. Like now there's so many different pop stars, for example, because it's way more accessible to get an audience to like have
Right.
a platform to speak from. So I think that thankfully, at least in my experience of like the past few years, touring has been a fruitful thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that, I have years of experience and access and like the privilege of that to be able to, for example, start a band like Nova One and then be able to like tour pretty well off the start of the project.
Yeah.
That maybe wouldn't have existed had I started the band, all those years ago, that I've been able to sort of build on a following.
Oh yeah. Right.
But I feel like, yeah, streaming music, I think is, yeah, for all the reasons that I said, is still very much a controversial thing. That it's cool that people can hear the music, but it's also such a bummer that artists aren't paid enough.
Right. Yeah. Well, I hope I didn't bring you down too far with that last question. I don't really have anything else for you.
No worries. Hey,
Yeah.
it's they're thoughtful questions. So I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Well, I mean, like, I'm just kind of interested in the music business in general, and like kind of feeling out people's ideas and opinions on especially something like that, especially vinyl, and then the whole streaming thing, because they're just two different worlds, really. And I don't know. I mean, like, I like them both for different reasons, and
Yeah.
but it's always kind of nice to hear it from an artist's perspective, because I don't put any music out, so I don't have to really think about it. If people,
You consume it.
I do, because and I bit the bullet and I bought an Apple Music subscription just because I was sick of the ads. I was sick of not being able to like find a full length record, and just hearing things on shuffle and stuff like that. I was just like, no, I want to hear records, and I want to hear like the whole thing at least.
Right.
So, I mean, whatever. It's a few bucks a month. I mean, I hope it helps you. I hope you see something from iTunes, like from subscriptions that are purchased.
We'll see at the end of the year, James. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right. You let me know come tax time.
Yeah.
Well, Roz, I just wanted to say thank you again for coming and doing this, and
Yeah.
you're such a nice and thoughtful person, and I just really appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you reaching out and allowing artists to speak in this type of platform. It's fun.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Roz.
Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Can you see? They don't like us. They don't like us. Meant to be. It's not for us. No, not for us. Crunching teeth. Can't you tell us it's not for us?
Vinyl and Vision is a Psychic Static production. Theme song by Jeff Robbins of 123 Astronaut.